Welcome to Fear the Boot's next actual play. We had a break from it for a while because there was some reshuffling amongst the hosts, and also our Blades in the Dark game just wasn't working out for us. And then a bunch of things happened. We had people taking trips and people getting sick and going into surgeries and all kinds of nutty stuff. But we're now getting ready to launch it back up. What we did is we did an internal poll amongst ourselves where we each pitched the games we'd like to see. And then we had a simple up and down vote where I looked at the average of people's responses. And we had two games tie, which was my homebrew space opera, Epoch of Rysos, and Wayne running a superheroes game or a supervillains game, some kind of supers game. And we put it up, we put the tie up for vote on Patreon, and by, I believe, the difference was one vote.
Yep, a single vote difference.
Yeah, a single vote difference. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, at least here it does. Maybe it doesn't where you live, but in Fear the Boot, your vote matters. And one person's vote made the decision that we are going to be playing Epoch of Rysos. Though I tell you, I'm flattered that the vote was so close, because the vote being that close says that, I don't know, I guess we have ideas people like. So I think it would have hurt my feelings and hurt my feelings for Wayne if either one of our games had just tanked, like 90-10 sort of split. So I appreciate you guys loving us all so much. Anyway, we are going to try and make some improvements for this AP over the previous APs. This one we're recording remotely just because we're doing a little bit of pre-planning, like not even session 0 stuff, just kind of pre-planning. But the next time, we're not only going to be recording back in the same location as each other, but we're also going to put some stuff together to try and now get, instead of one Omni mic, get us all individual mics with pop filters and shock mounts on the mics and such, so that this AP will have an audio quality similar to our regular show as opposed to the audio abomination that has been our previous APs. So hopefully, but we'll see how that goes, but that's what we got planned. All right, so we also might add intro and outro music and some, like, if the story so far sort of recaps. I don't know. I don't want to overpromise. My first goal is just to fix the mic situation. Well, let's see. For this game, it's going to be me running the game. Julia from the regular show is going to be joining us. She is not here tonight because she has opening day tickets for a Cardinals game. And then Brodor is back, at least until he moves to the, I don't know where it is you're moving in Oregon, which I still hope falls through.
Yeah, which we're not actually supposed to talk about exactly, because, you know, I won't get into it, but it's sort of semi-secret precisely where it is we're going, because, you know, there are certain stalkers that we don't want to follow us to the West Coast. But I was thinking, if I may, Dan, I don't want to hijack your AP, but I was thinking we could do maybe something like this. Now, imagine we need a sci-fi sort of theme, and if you guys can't hear this music, can you hear it okay?
Not really.
No? How about now?
No.
Anyway.
It just sounds like background distortion.
All right. So, and any which way. So what we do is we need to get you some great music, and we need to do like a Buck Rogers or, you know, some sort of really kitschy sci-fi intro, outro, but then also maybe something to go along, like music for our recap.
Yeah, well, I told you, I'm not saying I will, but I'm thinking about doing intro and outro music, and maybe even like pre-recording a simple intro so people could recognize the voices of, you know, like you saying, I'm Brodor and I'm playing this character, and then Eric saying, I'm Eric and I'm playing this character, or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, Brodor's joining us. Eric from the Skies of Glass AP and also from all of Gamers Table stuff is going to be joining us again. Bab/Brandon is back. Wayne is back. And we're also, for this game, adding Dot. I don't know what Dot's from, but she's from nowhere. Nothing. She does not matter. She's a rounding error in my existence. It's just me spitballing. I'm sorry, vamping, not spitballing. I'm just vamping here. So here's my set of questions for you guys. So
not going to give her the chance to actually call out her AP, are you?
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
I like paused and she stayed muted.
You didn't pause at all. You just kept talking.
Well, all right, fine. There were fear the boot link pauses. If I stop for half a second, that's a fear the boot
jump
link
in.
pause.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's Resting Glitch Face, and then I have been on several episodes of Gamer Stable as well. So those are the big ones.
So yeah, Resting Glitch Face, which is a Shadowrun AP that I believe exists under the Gamers Table general umbrella, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say I put a link to that in the show notes, but I don't know if there will be show notes. But if there are, I'll put a link to Resting Glitch Face. But anywho. Okay, well, does anyone else have anything they feel they need to announce before I continue?
No.
Okay, that counted as a pause. And so, all right, anyway. So here's what I want to talk about today. Skies of Glass it's a game that's fairly easy to jump right into because of the fact that it's highly relatable. Most people can envision the gist of a post-apocalyptic world, especially since all the really weird stuff like psychic mutants and whatnot are removed from that trope. And you're playing people in a scarcity environment trying to survive, where a combination of environmental, economic, and human factors are your greatest threats. I mean, if you've seen anything that's Old West or Mad Max or whatever, I mean, you have at least a ballpark of what you're doing. That is not true with Epoch of Rysos. It is a very heavy, and both literally and figuratively, very alien setting. It takes place several thousand years in the future. There's a lot of politics, a lot of technologies that have been created. And I tried very hard to make the game and the setting in such a way where things that are alien are truly alien. And it doesn't just look like today, modern day sort of repackaged with a lot of neon lights and people in funny makeup. And so there's some questions I have for you guys, I think, before we can even do a session 0 group template sort of thing. Which is, I will say, before I ask the questions, that I already know that I'm going to have to work outward with the setting. I'm going to have to start you guys in a place that's fairly easy to relate to, because I don't want to bore you with a 6-hour session lecture, or setting lecture, rather. So I want you guys to experience it. So I'll start you in a fairly small area so you can learn that, and then I'll introduce new ideas as you guys move outward. But let me ask you guys a couple questions, which is, what are the things that in a far future science fiction game, so we'll talk something here like Star Trek, Star Wars, maybe even something like The Expanse, though more technologically advanced than that, and that sort of thing. What are the things that you enjoy in those games, don't enjoy? I guess you kind of throw Firefly in there. It's a more technologically advanced setting than Firefly, but there are some frontiersy settlement sort of areas out there. I mean, do you guys prefer more action games, more intellectual games? Brother, if you can exhale the damn weed.
No. I'm not. I don't need to exhale. I just didn't want to interrupt. It was one of those rare moments where it was a normal pause and not an FTB pause.
Okay.
But so for me, one of the things that I absolutely love about settings like Traveler or Star Trek or Star Wars or what have you is I really enjoy having the creature comforts of, a high-tech society. But then I have adventures where I go and I'm in a place where that technology maybe is inferior, or then in other adventures I go to a place where we are godlike in our technology. But also the influence of government, right? Like, I love Outer Rim style places where there isn't government, or maybe it's like a small town America where local government is all powerful, right? I like exploring those sorts of things, those big, wide swaths of, I don't know. I'm stoned, so maybe I'm rambling, but I guess I want to see everything Rysos has to offer, right? With Skies of Glass, we got to see some interesting spectrums from both things like Chicago and the Ists, but then also the Mars colony. I want that sort of thing, but on steroids, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. What else? What are the other kinds of things you guys like or don't like?
Well, you mentioned the Expanse. The thing I liked about that is that, and you said that this setting can be political. I like the idea of, political tension between alien cultures and things like that for resources or expansion or things like that. So, like maybe even off the books conflict between different groups to try and, get control over certain resources or areas and things like that. Things where we don't necessarily know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, who's on our side.
I'm taking notes here as you guys are.
I do have a question though, Dan.
Sure.
I noticed that there is some alien artwork that's online on DeviantArt. Are those still valid, or have you changed from the stuff that the person did? Like it's from a long time ago.
Stuff from Keith Curtis that is still valid.
Okay, yeah.
So stuff from Keith, I believe so. If you, I think you'd also find it at. Well, hang on, before I give his web address, let me make sure he's taking the website down or something. But yeah, any of the stuff
on his website earlier today, actually.
Double checking that it's still there. You guys can keep talking. Okay, yeah, actually, I actually have more art than what's posted. But if you go to kacurtis.com and you click the illustration list, you can see he's got some racist pictures. There are more races than what appear there. Okay. And I also have additional artwork. He's given me artwork for some of the technology, artwork for some of the emblems for different factions and such. But yeah, if you go there, you can at least get a look at some of the species. Like I said, I have more than what's posted there.
Yeah, and if you actually click the so on the page, it's got the little tiny pictures, but when you click them, for most of them at least, actually for all of them, there's more than one race on each picture.
Yes, that is correct. Now, in terms of who you are in the universe, do you want to be people that are well-connected and highly placed? Do you want to be people that are attached to an organization, fully independent? Do you want to be scraping by to make a living? Do you want to, be on the run? Do you want to be, I don't know, what sort of, I guess this is where there's going to be a big difference between, say, Star Trek, where most of the characters are part of the big main, well-backed organization, versus, say, Star Wars, where it's the rebellion, and so they're an underdog, but they're still got some resources, versus, say, Firefly, where they are completely the hell on their own. Where do you guys prefer in that sort of spectrum?
I'm going to bounce that back at you first, and I'm doing this specifically because of past experience with this setting. What do you need from us to be? because I know in at least one past campaign, we wanted to be merchants, particularly salvagers, things like that. And it just, you were struggling with it and you weren't happy with the game that you were trying to run. And we were enjoying the game, but we weren't what you needed us to be.
Yeah, and okay, that's a fair
I want to
question.
throw that back at you first, because if you need us to be part of a military, part of an organization, I want you to say that and put that out for us now.
Okay.
And not just try to go along with us.
Right. Fair enough. All right. So let me give you guys some parameters, because I knew that point was going to come up, which is a very fair point, because what you described is, in fact, well, there were some other things going on, but what you said is entirely correct. And so I was thinking about this. Part of the issue with that game was I had something of a particular plot in mind, and I made the mistake of developing the plot without knowing what the group was going to be, and I just couldn't make it work. All right, so I would like, there's one thing that I need. There's one thing that I'm going to say is a request, but it is a very low request. Like, if you guys say, no, that's not our thing, it is not going to affect the quality of the game. The need is, I do need you guys to be at least part of a small organization, because since you guys are coming into a universe where you don't, or many of you, I guess really everyone here but Wayne, is not going to know anything about the universe. If you have no one to back you up, no one to dig you out, no one to kind of warn you toward or away from something, the game could get really far off the rails. Also, because I don't know how you guys are going to interact with the game, that if I can't have anyone come in and at least suggest a course of action, or you guys have some kind of prescripted set of things to do, and it doesn't have to be that railroady, but I'm just saying if those elements are not there at all, it will get fairly hard for me to run this game. Because if you guys are just like, oh, we're just going to have a ship and just go out there and do whatever, I don't know how to write a plot for that, because once again, I've never seen you guys interact with this setting before. Now, one thing I would request, yes, brother, do you have a...
No, I'll wait.
Okay. The one thing I would request, now this is not a need, is the larger and more formalized the organization, especially if you want to see some of the political tensions and economic tensions and that side of things, the more well-connected you are, the more of that you're going to see. So if you guys are like, okay, we will play like a, military wet work group that's posing as civilians or something, you're going to see more of that than, say, if you're part of a colonization company or something like that, or an exploratory company. But that last part, that's not a need. I don't need you guys to be military or part of a large organization. I just need you to be part of an organization.
So if we are, let's say you mentioned exploratory. Let's say we're not part of an exploratory thing, but is exploration something that you could have room for in the game as something else? Like you were asking before, what are things that we love about sci-fi? Yeah. I love exploration, finding something new, being the first ones on the scene to, going into something we just have no idea what we're about to experience.
That's what I was going to say. It's my favorite thing, is that exploring or dealing with a species that no one's dealt with before. I mean, obviously that comes directly from like Star Trek, but like putting our own beliefs against a civilization we just found out exists, and how opposite they are from us, or how odd they seem, or new planets, things like that. Like the exploration part of sci-fi, at least in space, is probably like one of the most important things for me.
And yes, that there are actually two ways I could introduce that into the game. I think one would be more interesting than the other, but I'll come back to that. I want to finish hearing what people's thoughts are. So, okay, so you guys are talking explorers. What are the rest of you guys thinking? Explorers, military, merchants, pirates.
I adore structure, right? I mean, and I don't care for pirates. Almost
Pirates have structure.
Almost no iteration of pirates have been interesting to me. No. I'm just starting to say that yes, I recognize pirates had structure. I still don't care for pirates. Maybe it's all the cabin boy nightmares. And I love that movie by the way. It's a genius.
I wasn't even thinking pirates, but since you said pirates, now I'm really thinking pirates sounds really fun actually. Because that can be roped into so much.
All right. Well, I guess the contrarian, and as soon as I said I hate pirates, he's like, well, I definitely want to be pirates because Brodor said he hates them.
That's not why. I honestly didn't even think about it until you said it. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, Space Pirates is perfect because all the things that were just listed are all within the pirates, like adventure, exploration, technically like a military style. Like you have diplomatic. There's so much wrapped into being pirates. You shot yourself in the foot, Brodor. You realize that?
No, Dan said pirates first.
Who did?
Dan did.
Well, I was just throwing out various things. Now, based on what you guys are saying, I'm writing down a few game pitches. Yeah. I'm going to give you guys to see how you react to these various campaign ideas. Just because I need some feel of where to start before.
I didn't get to my point.
Okay, what's your point? Go ahead and make
No, it's fine. What I was trying to say is that I like the idea of I am aggressively pro railroad and structure. In fact, I want there to be structure inside the party. And I don't care if you're qualified to be in charge of me. And if I'm better at your job than you are, I don't care if you're the boss. I just want to do what you fucking tell me.
You want a rank structure.
Yes.
And that sounds like pirates to me. I don't know if you know
I'll
that.
Say the military would have that. Pirates would have that. Even a lot of large corporations would have that. So, I mean.
I hate and look, I'll do it and we'll have fun. I'm just saying I hate the Age of Sail. I fucking hate it. It's annoying.
We're in space.
Like
it's
pirates,
different.
And you're just trying to convince yourself.
We're not like risking scurvy
pirates.
by being out in space too long. We're like what?
Eric's got me.
Okay, so let's come back. We'll put a pin in the pirate thing. There is a campaign idea that would, I think, it would work with what I'm hearing, and Brodor would not hit up against your distaste for pirates because it's a bit more morally complicated than that.
Yeah, I kind of have a preference, and this is a mild preference, that I don't want to play the bad guys. And that's only because we just finished a Blades in the Dark campaign.
And let me ask for clarification on something. Do you consider bad guys and
morally ambiguous is perfectly fine?
Okay.
I mean, like if we were talking pirates, for example, I don't want to go raiding people that we see as innocent. Now, if part of it is we're being asked to do things and we have to question, is that the right thing or not? That's cool.
Okay.
One thing that I was thinking about is, especially since this is going to also kind of showcase the setting for those, for the, those listening and things like that. An idea that popped in my head was like xenoarchaeologists or something like that, where we're going out to the fringes of space and looking at, and it would be a way for you to really kind of frame any kind of history and things like that of the setting itself. And we can deal with some wacky stuff that no one's ever seen and whatnot.
We could even be like some kind of cadets or something like that.
If we were digging up artifacts, we'd be stealing them like a pirate.
Yeah, it's all coming around.
Be ancient grave robbers.
Art thieves is a whole different ball of wax. Now, if we're actually, aggressing foreign lands and taking artifacts, selling them on, illegal markets, okay, the whole pirate thing that's a different story.
I'm confused on like what your like solidified idea of what pirates would be in this setting, because it sounds like the open seas and like missing fingers because we needed the money and like rotted teeth and shit. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, I don't know what like weaponry and stuff, but I'm thinking like boarding spaceships, stealing shit, or like taking cargo from areas and like smuggling things and just doing cool shit. I don't
want gold hoops and buggery, right? Like that's just
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What do you like? Your mindset is like in the open seas, and we're like, no, bro, we're in space, and you're like, yeah, but the hoops and not wearing shoes thing, we're in space. What the fuck are you talking about?
Wayne and Dot haven't heard anything from you guys.
What? I've been talking like crazy.
Well, you've just been agitated, which I appreciate because it's fun watching Broder get agitated. But now that I've given you some parameters and they've said, I'm not curious to hear from Dot and Wayne what you guys are thinking. What works, what doesn't work.
So I'm always going to be just easy. It's just like I will go with whatever. But I will say Brandon's pirates sound pretty fun. But if that gets nixed, then that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot of input or preference just because I don't really know the setting all that well, and I want to like leave that open. Mm-hmm. So I'm good with whatever we go with.
It's so weird. I sat down thinking I don't really want to do the bad guys because we just did Blades, and now I'm thinking how much fun it would be to be pirates.
I mean, pirates don't have to be bad guys, unless Brodor is fixated on us being bad guys with peg legs.
You're not going to be pirates yet. The
there are cybernetic limbs.
Is way no, dude. You're in an age where, I mean, yeah, there are cybernetic limbs, but no, this is over 2,100 years in the future with no major interruption of human technological development. They just freaking regrow your leg. I mean, it's sometimes while you're sitting there, they just 3D print you a new leg. I mean, this is really high tech. So,
which is dope shit.
Wait, can I play Bishop?
Like,
well, let's go
X-Men Bishop.
The answer, yeah. Wait, do you mean X-Men or do you mean the Android?
No, I mean like, hey, Bishop, do the thing with the knife.
Oh, yeah, okay, Android. Yeah.
Oh, the answer is yes. There's an entire technology about brains as middleware that you're going to learn about. That I'm trying not to do a setting lecture, but the idea that even an average human can respond to something at superhuman speeds without any implant in their body, that is a thing. And I actually was, while we were at WashingCon, I was talking to a guy who's working on a PhD in artificial intelligence about my idea. And he was like, I actually caught his attention. He's like, this is a fascinating idea and actually has real world potential. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah. And I know Dan doesn't want to do a full setting conversation yet, but from a technology standpoint, one of the biggest standouts to me of the setting from that kind of informs things that you might want to do. People are basically immortal. Nanotechnology has slowed aging, and healing. You can heal from just about anything with it, unless you're outright killed.
That's correct. It is a relatively low fatality setting because they have the ability to. They can salvage almost any portion of the human body and bring it back. However, because of this, in most territories, laws have popped up which they call PERC laws, P-E-R-C. And I forget what PERC actually stands for. I have it written down somewhere. But you can think of it as also being short for percentage. And what they do is because they're trying to control the line between regeneration and cloning, that based on the amount of what they deem to be your core person that is still available, meaning like how much of your brain is left. They will at that point make a decision that, and the laws change from place to place on what perk is legal. That to basically say at this point to rebuild you would be saving you, but you'll lose some memories and skills. Or at this point to rebuild you would basically be cloning a new copy of you, and therefore we won't do it. And we dispose of what's left of you.
So there's an actual like gameplay mechanic. So let's say like I lose an arm or I have like a head injury. I could lose experience per se, right? Like correct. I could lose. That's pretty cool, actually.
You can lose skill packages is a better way of putting it. But yes, that's correct.
That's cool.
Because you lose a part of yourself, especially if it's a major damage to the central nervous system.
Or gain some, I guess, depending on what kind of thing you replace it with, correct?
Yes, well, and also what legality you're dealing with. One of the things in the setting is that humanity had a love affair with sort of post-human ideas or transhuman ideas, and society simply changed that it became distasteful. They just don't do it anymore. Now, it's not to say nobody does. The galaxy's a big area. People do all kinds of things. But in the mainstream of society, they have found a way to basically perfect you so much as is and keep intervening technologies external that post-humanism and transhumanism have almost completely fallen out of favor.
So we're not having like Ghost in the Shell situations where we're just positronic brains walking around in like android bodies.
Now, some of you might have been that at some point previously. Some of you could start the game that way, but that will limit how society interacts with you because what you are is illegal in most civilized areas. But yeah, what Wayne said is correct. Basically, what they do is they genetically rebuild you, fix the errors in your gene code. You don't have cancer predispositions. You all have 20/20 vision. You don't age. You're all permanently stuck somewhere between the age of 23 and 27.
So peg legs aren't something you have to worry about, Brodor.
Yeah, Brodor, if you have a peg leg, that was a personal choice.
Yes,
No,
you went out of your way to do that.
I am way better looking at 47 than 27. This is garbage.
You do get more attractive every single day. It's so absolutely true.
You're so sweet.
Brodor, that's because you're going through a process of self-improvement. If you were doing the same process at 25...
You know what I fucking hate about this show? You guys in your goddamn logic, you're all like, hey, Brodor, why don't you use your brain? I don't care what the party does as long as I get to be an emotionless android.
Robot.
That's possible. That there are robots in the setting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
So there's AIs get a little more complicated. But I guess to borrow a term from like Mass Effect, what they called Mass Effect, a virtual intelligence, an android that is not technically conscious but functions as if it was, is indistinguishable for one that is conscious but is not actually. There are boundaries to its growth and stuff. Those are all over the place. Now, actual artificial intelligences, that is doable, but there is some complexity to playing one. It's sort of like playing Jedi in the era between Star Wars episodes 3 and 4. There's going to be some complexity to it. So I say it can't be done, but some things have happened that have upset the previous balance on the question.
So if human beings are basically immortal, and I wasn't a huge fan of the TV show. Actually, I wasn't a fan of the TV show at all. The books were okay, but in Altered Carbon, where you could download your brain from a stack to a new body, the weapons they had were just fucking cruel, right? Like they had this sunbeam gun that, the way it's described is if you had it on a broad enough beam, you could shoot somebody here and, just above their heart and burn everything from there up off to ensure that you destroyed their stack and that they could not be revived. And only the wealthiest people could have a backup basically in the cloud. So if human beings in Epoch of Rysos are essentially immortal, what's combat like? What's warfare like?
It is definitely okay. So first of all, there is no backup stack of your mind. That is considered by broader society to be the same as cloning. That you are basically simulating a person, not saving a person. Once again, it's not to say nobody does it. It's a big universe. There are black markets, blah, blah, blah. But it's not something you're supposed to do. And it's not something the average person does. If somebody blows your head apart, you are dead. Now, the answer to that question, well, how does that affect things like warfare and death, is that does radically change the dynamic of things. Because one of the things that we look at in our lives is none of us want to die. I mean, unless we're profoundly, mentally distraught, but none of us want to die, right? We have a survival instinct, but we might be willing to die in certain circumstances because of the fact that we know we're all going to die anyway. You don't know that anymore. And so certain things have changed socially. For example, families are a lot more complicated because at some point, when your family is still there and alive at the same time as you, 10 generations, 12 generations down, who do you consider your family anymore? And so there's family units, they sort of surge up and then over time split off and lose track of each other. It's changed the dynamic there. It has changed the dynamic of war, putting a human in conflict, in a conflict situation. It's a much more carefully contemplated situation. And this is where technologies have come into play to try and make humans, when they're present, as effective and protected as they can possibly be. Or in many cases, don't have them be present. Fight wars at the industrial level. Send out, automate as much as you can and let them die. And that's also created its own issues. But once again, I don't want to get into a deep dive on the setting just yet. I'd rather introduce these concepts organically, excuse the pun.
Yeah, I think a few of them are necessary for people to decide what sounds interesting to be.
Now, are we going to be an all-human group, or is there species, player character species that you can do?
Oh, there are absolutely other species you can play. Now, once again, I will warn you that one thing I really tried to do in this game is species. It's not generally speaking a human with funny eyes and funny ears, or a little bit of makeup on. Nor are they all archetypal. Like in Star Trek, the Klingons are human but warlike, and they're human but like Mongol horde sort of thing. The Vulcans are human but ascetic or stoic. On down the line like that. It's humans, but they all fit an archetype or stereotype. The aliens, now they do have boundaries of this is what the typical one is like, but they are themselves as diverse and complex as humans are in many cases, not all cases, because the ways they reproduce are different, and in some of them, they are more or less just cloning themselves at each generation. So
I do have a question about that. Then,
sure.
if we do an alien race, are we dealing with like a setting where everyone's super xenophobic about anyone but their own, or is this more of like it's to a point where it's understood that these races exist, and we're not going to be dealing with like somebody hating someone who's a different race just because?
Okay, because of the fact that death is so meaningful and there are wars going on.
Yeah.
Prejudice is a major part of the game, but this is where we'll go back to the relations between humans and various species are varied, meaning there are some races that, and I almost just humans as a whole, because just like modern day, someone's degree of racism and who they're racist against or why they have that view, it's a complex subject. And the same is true in this setting, that there's a general opinion, an Overton window, I guess you could say. But then there are going to be exceptions to the far extremes of whatever, and people that don't fit into that. And also where you're at. If you're right on a borderline that's being fought over, your opinions are probably a lot more extreme than someone who's nowhere near that conflict zone. So stressing there is that diversity. Also, within the alien races, some of them have very positive relationships with humans, and humans have come to overall very much like them.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there were like alliances or anything between certain races.
And
too.
there are also situations where there is a sufficient diversity within the alien race that humans that are at least somewhat discerning and cultured can make the distinction that they're not all the same. For example, probably the species that represents the biggest conundrum for humanity is one called the Cyrenai. And the Cyrenai are divided currently into three major factions. One of them gets along wonderfully with humans. One of them begrudgingly accepts humans. One of them profoundly hates humans. And that's their own internal philosophical and pseudo-religious debate they're having. But they do outwardly identify which faction they belong to. And so the humans tend to respond differently, even to a race they are otherwise at conflict with, to members within that race based on how they present themselves and which faction they belong to. So xenophobia and racial overtones, yeah, that is a not uncommon part of this game, but it's not so pervasive that it's like you can't play anything but this.
Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to know. Because I wouldn't want to pick an alien race, and then the entire time I'm dealing with the same conversation of people being like, "Hey, you're not one of me. Fuck you," and because that gets so stale and just annoying. But if it's not like that, and we're just dealing with normal shitty people, then that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And sometimes, once again, they might have good reason for their views.
Sure.
But other times they may not, and they're just shitty people.
Well, yeah, I'm sure if we're playing humans, we're still going to be shit on by somebody. Yeah. Somebody's not going to like us.
Exactly. And out there within the alien species, their views are somewhat diverse, but within them, you're going to get distinctions as well, where amongst the aliens, there's going to be open-minded ones and shitty ones, and ones that fall in between.
Okay.
I mean, goodness gracious, one of the races that Wayne has enjoyed playing in the past, they have an issue because they kind of loathe themselves because they really shouldn't exist. Or some of them say, well, the fact that we shouldn't exist makes us the one anomaly, and therefore we're superior to everyone.
Yep. And I played both versions.
Yeah. I say, like, if you played that particular species, your view of yourself would actually be a more interesting and important question than your view of everyone else.
Yep. I played one that wanted to be more human and hated his alien side, and one that embraced the alien side.
Any other comments at the high level? If not, we can move on to a next set of questions.
I don't think so.
So the next set of questions I have is based on the comments you have made. There's a whole, I mean, of course, the whole universe is still open because obviously whatever you choose to play, I can try and, fix up the plots you're dealing with and the way you're interacting with the game to still give you the elements you're interested in. So, I mean, you could be garbage haulers and I could still figure this out somehow. But let me ask you guys a question of, do you want me to pitch you some ideas and that you guys pick from, or at least maybe get you thinking? Or do you guys have some sort of concept where even if you don't have the proper nouns, you could at least say, using general nouns, well, we want to be a group that fits these criteria, and then I can try and figure out what in the game that best describes?
I think I would prefer pitch, mainly because that gives kind of a direction as to what you're thinking as well. So
gives context.
Yeah.
Yep. I was going to say the same thing, but yeah, it tells us what you're thinking and what you're excited about.
Okay. Let me give you then, because these are based on things that you guys mentioned that I thought, and I think the first one taken by, let me ask you another question. Would you guys rather do this now, or would you rather me write them up and have a longer discussion on Discord, and then we can come back with a concept as maybe a starting point for group template in the next time we actually record? So do you guys want to have this discussion now, or do you want to do it over the next 2 weeks on Discord?
I mean, we could do it now. I think if we did it whenever Julie was available to actually talk about it as well, because then we're going to have to do this kind of twice almost. Even if they listen to it, that we're going to have to do this twice, and I'd rather do it once. And that way, we're all consolidated at the same time, making decisions on what we're going to do together, as opposed to, we may change our mind or something over time or whatever. Well, what do you have already worked up?
Okay, I'll go. So, what do the rest of you guys think before I start that? Do you guys have any thought on do it now, do it later, do it on Discord between weeks, do it next, or in 2 weeks when we meet again?
I mean, if it's just basic, we wouldn't be making the decision now. So, I mean, Julie's going to listen to this and whatnot. So, I mean, hearing it now probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then let me give you, based on the things that you guys have said, there were 5 general concepts or group concepts that I think would fit what you guys laid out as what you enjoy in science fiction and would be able to hit those boxes. The first one would be what we'll call near field colonials. So basically, you work for some kind. You're not colonists yourselves, but you work for some kind of colonial corporation, basically trying to search out planets, understand what they're like, lay claim to them, and out there you're going to encounter a lot of unusual things. You're also, of course, going to be, because of the fact that both factions within species and then also between species share a lot of borders. Sometimes colonial grabs get a bit de facto. Basically, whoever shows there first and lives there first gets it. There is more complexity to it than that, because there are governing bodies that try and sort out disagreements or to set up areas of eminent domain. But the first option would simply to be some kind of colonial exploration group. To be honest, I think within this setting, this is probably the weakest of the 4 options, or the 5 options. The next one would be something that's along the lines of pirates, but would be a little more organized, a little less chaotic, which is to be plain privateers or commerce raiders. That on paper, you are completely independent and out there doing crazy stuff. In truth, you actually may have rank and serial number with a military organization. Or you might be civilian opportunists, where basically you know that you can go out and do bad things, but once it's under the concept of privateerism, not true piracy. Make that distinction if you care to. And so there is somebody back home that still backs you. I think either of those can work. I think they would take a lot more footwork on your guys' parts to make them interesting, in terms of your character development and such, because the ideas are fairly loose. Okay, the next 3 ideas are a little bit more defined in terms of your starting point. All right, one is, I'm not going to get too much into setting here, but there's an area called the RCZ, or what's called the Rishon Control Zone, which is basically a Rishon Containment Zone, which is basically where they're trying to hold back sort of an alien infestation of non-intelligent creatures that are operating in ways that no one has quite been able to explain. And I'll talk about that more if you pick this. But one of the things that they have discovered while fighting this species is they're turning up increasing evidence that before the current round of galactic civilizations, there was another round of galactic civilizations that seems to have gotten wiped out and not left a whole lot behind, and nobody's exactly sure why. So you would be in a conflict zone, but you would be doing a lot of exploration and research into these artifacts and such, trying to figure out what you can about what all of this means and what did come in the galaxy before. And of course, some of the things you find could eventually send you elsewhere in the galaxy, because you may find out that, oh, it looks like they had a major trade hub on a planet that's now held by this species that's, not even in our territory, but you need to find some way to follow up there. So you're basically trying to piece together lost civilizations, and this may bounce you around to a lot of weird places. The fourth idea is a particular military group has discovered or rediscovered from these efforts, from these archaeological efforts, they have rediscovered that there is a unique anomaly in space that sits within human territory that they simply call the Great Divide. That basically they were able to build a structure around, and when you move through it, it forms, I guess for lack of a better term, a wormhole between our galaxy and a particular point in another galaxy. And intergalactic travel, interstellar travel exists, intergalactic travel does not. The top speeds they can get anything up to is not fast enough to actually bridge the space between galaxies. And so they are just now beginning to explore this other galaxy and discover the species that exists there. And of course, because of the potential rush for diplomatic contacts, access to technology, access to resources, there are both allied and non-allied races that are trying to get a piece of this pie. And so humanity has the serendipity of sitting on the anomaly and knowing how to use it. But there is still some competition there where issues from the old world are bleeding over into the new world. But there are also sophisticated and perfectly capable species in this new area. So you'd kind of be leaving known shores behind, but that's not to say you can't make the trip back to known shores for various reasons. The final idea is there is a group out there that kind of bridges a lot of this. There is a group that was originally a colonization group that was run by a fairly large corporation. And they were colonizing a bunch of planets. And what happened is they were one of the relatively developed set of colonies. And they started becoming an issue of concern for a nearby major human power, who basically said, we are concerned that these colonists are getting enough political recognition and industrial strength that at some point our own colonial efforts and our own territorial expansion may be called into question. So they took the kind of shitty route of basically declaring them pirates and insurrectionists and taking their territory and leaving them on the run. And this group is still, on paper, recognized as being pirates, and some of them are willing to live that role, but that is not, in fact, what they actually are. They're actually largely dispossessed colonials who have now have a mix of sub-factions. Some of them are outright pirates and bad guys. Some of them are much more middle of the road. They're willing to fight to get back what they lost. Others are much more pacifist and kind of like, hey, why don't we just move on and try settling again elsewhere? But so it's a somewhat loosely aligned set of factions, but they share a common ancestry to a particular political and military dick move. So I don't know if any of these concepts give you guys sort of a starting point of thought, or if you...
I liked the privateers idea, but like you said, it's kind of loose, and it would factor so much on just like hearing about jobs and things like that. And I think that that's definitely not structure that Mike would want, because there's none. I really like the archaeologist angle. I thought that sounded really cool, because that almost guarantees we find some crazy shit, and it almost puts us in the path of things to happen that we can't control, and maybe our curiosity or whoever's in the group that is curiosity is driving us to do these things, to go to these places, kind of puts us in the path of. I do also like the kind of explorers, pioneers idea, but I feel like that one, the only problem I have with that one is I think it probably turned into more of like territory versus territory stuff. And in that case, I think the archaeologist sounds more fun. And then the fifth one being kind of like displaced colonizers. That sounds just interesting too, but I think it probably be a lot like the explorers, except with familiar areas to us, right? Is that what I'm gathering? Like,
yes,
we're kind of taking back stuff and trying to fight for our lands and things. I gotta say, with the choices that were given, I think archaeologist sounds the most interesting to me.
Yeah,
and that sounds fun.
I say out of the choices given, two of them really jumped out at me. One of them is the archaeologist one, and I already have character ideas just from hearing that.
Yeah, same.
I liked the idea of the going to another galaxy. I think that could be a really fun campaign, but I also, from the standpoint of you've got this entire galaxy worked out and all of this detail into it, that I think it would be, I think we'd be depriving ourselves by going to another galaxy and exploring that when you've got all of this internal politics already decided here in this galaxy.
Yeah.
If you're trying to showcase a setting, then us hopping a wormhole to another galaxy away from the setting, probably not the best. So, I'm really excited about the idea of the discovering lost civilizations.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the established, I think is kind of what Wayne's getting at.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on the second galaxy, because I think part of the issue there is I don't think you would understand the context of how the two things are interrelated, because it's like you're jumping straight to the weird and unknown, and without first understanding the known that gives it context.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it really works as an introduction to the setting, either for the players or the listeners.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I put it in there, because you guys mentioned sort of the strange new world sort of thing. So I thought it was worth mentioning, but I agree, especially if you guys had played several campaigns in this setting, I think it would have a lot more potential.
Oh, yeah. It's like if I knew more about it, that sounds great.
Oh, yeah. The whole description is super interesting. I just don't think it's good for this game.
Right.
But I would love to play in that game at some point.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Any other thoughts? If not, then what I will do is I will start to put together sort of a camp. Okay, let me finish the vote out here. So it sounds like there's general agreement on the archaeologists. Dot was nodding. Is that okay?
Yep, that's what I was going to align with. I think that one was, I like that idea most. Yes.
Okay. So if we're in agreement on that, then I will start putting a campaign prep packet together, which we will make available to the listeners for when we actually come back to record session 0. And we will also include, I'd like to conduct this part on Discord. And once again, I'll put some collated information together for the listeners. Because one of Julia's big things in games is she likes to know that she has a niche that, is hers. And she's not oftentimes too picky about what that niche is, but she doesn't want to be the group's fourth bard. And so I would like to include her on that, but I will at least start, because she can see what's on Discord. I will start putting some of the campaign stuff together that we can then review at session 0, and I'll put in document form for the listeners to check out at some point. So unless anyone's got any other comments, questions, whatever, then I think I've got enough to start filling in some proper nouns and giving you guys the background information you'll need to start thinking about character concepts. And that's something that I'm going to heavily emphasize here is be developing people, or coming up with concepts, because I can always go back and fill in the proper nouns. One of the things I guess I would like to know, just so I know what to look at, is to what degree are you guys interested in playing aliens, or would you prefer to play a predominantly human or fully human group?
I definitely have an opinion there for me. I've always played an Asta, so I'm going to be a human.
Okay.
And my particular character, what I have in mind already, I'm going to go the science bend. I'm not thinking pilot. I'm not thinking it. I'm going to focus my skills towards science.
Let's not talk too much skills because I'd like Julie available for that part. But because this tells me basically, do I need to start explaining to you guys the nearby species and or those that are likely to be involved in this particular effort, or those that may show up, or maybe you guys want to play some kind of person who's traveled into this area that isn't human. So is that something I need to develop?
I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think at least one or two of us should probably play an alien, and I would like to do that. Just to kind of have that, dynamic within the group to work off of.
Let me ask.
I thought I like the idea of playing an alien. That's why I asked originally. I typically play humans and things anyway. But, I mean, is there... I guess I'd base it off of... I'm sure you have, like, information on, like, backgrounds and things for each... like, the races that are available.
I do for many of them. I can also do is I can give you short descriptions, because there are 20-some-odd species. So I can give you short descriptions, and then you can come back and say, okay, could you develop this one more? The elevator pitch sounded good. Can you develop it more? And... where I have visual aids, I will include them. Where I don't, I won't. And then those are the ones that because now I know that it would be setting lecture that would actually have purpose. It wouldn't just be me droning on for hours and hours.
Sure.
That sounds
perfect.
Okay. And then we'll introduce details more slowly. So I'll come back with I'll at least do some elevator pitches on at least the ones that I think are playable. There's some of these I think are they're so alien that or so mindless that they're really not playable. So I'll focus on what I consider to be the playable species. Brodor, I need to understand how serious or facetious you are about something playing either a virtual or artificial intelligence. Is that something you're serious about?
So... I don't want to have the group overloaded with too many weirdos, right? And I guess what I mean by that is that if we already have if we're going to have two people playing aliens, which I think is a good decision, are we going to be okay if half the party is human or less?
Yeah,
well, I think so. Yeah, especially if we say half the party's human. And of the remaining people, person number 4, if you're a virtual intelligence or artificial intelligence, you are of human build.
Right.
I mean, that kind of, by, I guess, rounding error, makes 2/3
Let's
of the
be in the
party,
human camp. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm very serious. I mean, I would like to have corporeal form.
No, I would demand it. You are going to have a physical body. Now, my question is, do you want to play something that is truly artificial and conscious? You are actually a standalone life form, or do you want to be something more like Bishop that can red room or mimic a human presence, but probably in reality is not actually alive?
My preference would be the latter. Would to be something that is very much able to pantomime a human, but is not going to pass the Turing test.
Okay. Well, even if you pass the Turing test, because you may pass the Turing test. So for anyone who doesn't know, let me explain.
Right, or I should say the Voight-Kampff test, I guess.
Well, I would go to the Red Room test of the understanding the difference between syntax and semantics.
Right.
That you may have syntax, but you don't have semantics. You can tell everyone you're sad, but that doesn't mean you actually are sad. So you are just simulating that. Because an actual artificial intelligence. Go ahead.
I said the funny thing is here, all of these clarification of references, and the one I don't get is I have no idea who Bishop is.
From Aliens.
Aliens. He's the.
I've never watched any of them.
Oh. Wayne, my God.
My heart.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else, then I think I've got what I need to start prepping some kind of pre-campaign document for you guys to look at, and then we can, from there, figure out where to drill down and provide more info, and then we will obviously do this in more detail in 2 weeks in session 0. So anything else?
Other than Wayne's homework is to see Alien and then Aliens.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually do have a frame of reference for the Alien Universe's robots, just because I finished Scott Sigler Alien Phalanx book recently. But I read that because of the author, not because of the universe.
They're androids, Wayne. There's a difference. We don't even need all these tests to figure out if Broder's an AI. We just cut him to see if he bleeds milk or Alfredo sauce. And then we know.
Well, that's the thing, is that I have a tapioca spigot. And
Is it between your legs?
I was going to say it's his dick.
Yeah.
Okay. But the I guess the point to wit here is that, Broder, you said you want some form of corporeal form.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to be a disembodied thing.
No, and I wouldn't want you playing that.
Yeah,
either.
no, I want to be stuck in a body like Bishop or another android from that, a synthetic from that.
Okay.
Right?
So one of the limits that is placed on you by your manufacturer, because this is the prevailing law within most civilized areas, is you cannot actually pass as human. Certainly not up close. You can get as close to, say, something like, I don't know if you saw the Will Smith AI movie or iRobot movie.
Mm-hmm.
You could be like Sonny in that, or maybe even as close as like Data in Star Trek, but you're not going to be Bishop insofar somebody has to cut you to see if you're a robot or not.
Yeah,
so
great.
Your appearance will be at least somewhat robotic. Do you want to be generally humanoid, or are you thinking that your physical form may be something that is not humanoid in nature? That
floating orb. Yeah, do it. Be a floating orb. Just a big old ball.
A multi-organ sex bot.
That's perfect. We need that. It's a long trip.
I think that my preference would be to go with the classic human prejudice of the droid, android, synthetic, whatever, needing to have some semblance of human appearance as to not be off-putting. Plus, I think that'll be just easier for me to role play.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, once again, you will be outside of the Uncanny Valley. You will be on the left side of the Uncanny Valley, meaning you are obviously not human. But if you want a basically human structure, that's totally fine.
So it'd be like, what was that game? Something Detroit?
Oh, Detroit.
Become
human or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
So like maybe you have like LED lights or your eyes glow or something.
There was a
There
kid
might be seams around his face.
Yeah,
like
there was a kid show that like the guy had like the plastic hair, and the bad guy, like he looked like a person, but then like he had like plasticky looking hair.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make me super creepy.
Yeah, well, it's actually probably you'd look even more obviously not human than that. But Okay.
I mean, I just don't want to look like a child molester.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
they come in
fine.
all shapes and sizes.
Your
in
robot
space, I
will
guess.
not have a really distracting mustache.
Yeah, the pencil stash.
You won't look like Jared Fogle.
Okay, now we're done being awful. If that's it, then I'll start putting prep work together to give you guys some idea first where you are and what's going on, and then secondly, I'll give you the high level pitches on aliens. And if based on what you guys decide to play, I'll flesh out where I need to and ignore where I don't. And if I'm missing art, I'll be giving Keith Curtis a holler. So, all right. As for you guys at home, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you hopefully in about 2 weeks.